already was talking last week. We didn't finish it. I thought we had finished it, but we didn't, so we're going to try to finish it tonight. But the section 1 where it was talking about why to know the Bible. Why to know the Bible. And I think we had already gone over like 5 points on that of why we should know the Bible. And we got down to a 6th point of why we need to know the Bible. And so one of the things I wrote down here, it prepares you for service. It prepares you for service. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, it says, "But sanctify the Lord God in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and in fear." And then in 1 Timothy 4, verse 6, "If thou put thy brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good minister of Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and of good doctrine, whereunto thou hast attained." Now, I know we kind of give ourselves kind of a mixed signal every now and then, because I always say you go out there and you tell people about Jesus. That's all you need to do is go out there, give your testimony. Tell about how Jesus saved your soul, and all that works. But inevitably, you're going to find somebody that knows a little bit about the Bible. And they're going to have questions about the Bible. And they've been around people who's gotten hurt in church and may never had been saved to start with. And so they're down in everything about the church and telling how they're wrong on this and how they're wrong on that. And that's all these people know about the Bible. And so therefore, then that all of a sudden that person comes along and they say, "Well, this is how I feel about the Bible." And they begin to tell you, for instance, the one we always use here, and it's always a good example, is, "Why is God so mean? I see God as a mean God. Surely a God that you claim loves us so much, surely a God that loves the people so much that he gave his only begotten Son, surely to goodness he wouldn't allow all this evil on the earth." And on top of that, with people not even knowing the Word of God, he's going to send them to hell because they don't know. Well, now that's going to leave you in a pickle, isn't it? If you don't understand the Scriptures. But if you understand the Scriptures, you can give an answer to that. What's the answer? Well, God never started all this. God started us all in a perfect environment. God started us all to where we can have a relationship with him. God's always wanted us to be close to him and have a good fellowship with us and provide for us and care for us and live in a good environment. But man is the one that made a decision, decided to do wrong, to do evil. And it's because of man's decisions is the reason that they have messed up. Anyone here ever had someone that gave them a question that stumped them? This, by the way, this study, remember, is participation. And it may be a long time ago, but has anyone ever said something to you and it's like, "I don't know the answer to that"? Yes, do you know what it was? Okay. That's right. Now, I'm going to look up everything. If you're going to come over here and say, "Where is this found?" I'll say, "I'll get right back with you." Now, what I'm going to start doing is what another teacher told, and I like the way he said it. He said, "I ain't giving you the answer. That ain't doing you a bit of good. You look it up. You look it up and come tell me." And I thought, boy, that was a smart answer. And he told me after class, he said, "There ain't no smart answer. It's just keep me from having to answer it." And I didn't know where it was. But it is true. If we just give people answers, then they don't study for themselves. The problem that we have in churches today is most of the time, a lot of the members of the church, the only Bible they study is on Sunday. And they're not studying it then. They're listening to a man of God, a preacher, or they listen to a Sunday school teacher, and they never crack open that Bible through the week. And then they say, "Well, I can't understand the Bible." Well, what does the Bible say to do if you don't understand? Ask. And didn't the Bible say that he'd turn around and give you the wisdom? He'll give you the knowledge. And so we find ourselves in a pickle because we've not studied it. And that's why it's important that we study the Word so that we can be good servants, good servers for the Lord. We can't really serve people if we don't have answers that come their way. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, you're not going to have all the answers. Matter of fact, I did a funeral for a guy, and we didn't even know he was saved or not. I hate doing them kind of funerals. I mean, what do you really tell the family? Well, if you ain't careful, you don't know exactly what to say, and you do more harm than you do good. And so my fallback is we don't know one way or another. They just know that he didn't, as far as they know, he never said nothing. But listen, if it's on the point of death and he said, hey, Lord, I realize I need you. And he could be saved at any time. So I go with the positive and say, look, his life's over. And I'm trusting that. He trusted Christ. But the thing that you can do now is if you don't know, you can make sure that you do know and that you can be with him if he had accepted Christ. So there's ways to work it around. But there's going to be times that you're going to be confronted with people, and they're just going to be ornery. I know y'all never meet any ornery people, do you? They're not in Henry County. They're all over in Carrollton. 10 people we got versus the 1 million cows that we got. But there's going to be times. And so no one can remember an incident when you got caught without knowing the answer. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. That's right. First fruits. He wants the first fruits. Now, saying that, let's dig in there just a little bit deeper. Is tithing for the church? I'm hearing conflicting stories. Yeses and nos. All right? Let me ask you this. How much are we supposed to give then if it's for the church? Y'all sure? She got it. It's kind of a trick question. When we talk about the tithing was something that God demanded to the children of Israel. He wanted the first fruits, the first of everything. And he wanted 10% of that. But when it comes, I heard a preacher one time preaching about the curse, being under the curse if you didn't give your tithe. And I said, buddy, I'm not under a curse anymore. Jesus Christ freed me from the curse. I'm not under a curse. I'm not under a curse. But when it comes to the New Testament, he wants more than that in essence. He wants the 10%. That's because that was a commandment. It wasn't a choice. You're going to give me that. That's mine. I want it. And we take it very lightly. And I don't think God's really changed his mind on that. He wants us to be obedient enough to where we give at least 10%. But when you study in the New Testament, he said they gave it all. How many wants to give up their bank account tonight? But what they did is they gave it all, and then they took care of everyone in the church. So it kind of gets on a tricky situation. But yes, we are commanded to give. Matter of fact, the Bible said he loves what kind of giver? A cheerful giver. And a matter of fact, the Bible says if you'll give, he'll what? He'll give you more. And so it always amazes me who people start bickering about, well, should I give on the gross or should I give on the net? Well, no, how much you want to be blessed? I promise you, I give him more than 10%. I'm not bragging. I give him more than 10%. You know why? Because I trust him with my money. And I have found out that 401ks can be a 01k if it's left up to a man. But I have never put my money into missions. I've never put my money into the church. I've never given to someone that God laid on that God didn't give back. Let me give you a case, an example. I was just telling, I think it was Sandra about, I don't remember who I was talking to. Like I said, my memory's bad. But I was talking to someone, and I was telling them that on that car I sold, that man took me for $1,700. Oh, it's Debbie. Took me for $1,700. He made it look like, and it's because I was irritated. And when you're irritated, you don't make good decisions. But he sat there, and he had a little, he said, I hear a tick in the car. And I couldn't hear nothing. And I said, well, am I hearing bad? Maybe there is. I said, but it's got 300,000 miles on it. It's probably got a tick in it. He said, well, I need to check the oil. So he pulls the dipstick out, and there's a little bit of moisture on there. How many knows when you run a cold engine, you're going to have a drop or two of moisture in there? Duh. So he says, there's water in this oil. Now, he's already told me as a mechanic, the next thing out of his mouth, he said this. He said, where is your antifreeze reservoir? And if I'd been using my noodle, I'd have said it's wherever a mechanic thinks it should be. But instead, I fell for it, and I turned around and looked where it was, and I said, it's right here. So he moves right from that oil stick, Goes over there, pulls out that little cord, rubs his finger across the water, and he said, see, oil. He said, now the problem is this car's got 300,000 miles on it. He said, you can't put a head gasket on it now. He said, because it'll ruin the engine. He said, you're going to have a new engine. And by the time I put all this money in there, the car's not worth it. He said, I'll give you $1,000 for parts. Now, mind you, it's got new shocks. It's got all kinds of things brand new on it. New air conditioning system, everything new. I said, no, I ain't selling it for that. And so I called Bob's son, and I asked him if he was telling the truth because he said it cost over $1,000 to get it fixed. And he said, oh, yeah, that's true. And so I'm sitting there, and I told him, I said, well, if I can get $1,700, was that good? And he said, if you can get $1,700 out of a car that's got a bad engine, you've done good. And so I told him, I said, I'm not giving a penny less than $1,700. So finally he decides he's going to be generous and give me $1,700. So I'm walking away feeling pretty good. I thought, hey, better than nothing. And then it dawns on me. If you got water in your oil, it don't look like oil. It's milky. So all he did is he pulled out a dipstick from a cold engine that had got warm, and there was a drop of water on it. And then he kept that oil on his finger while I was showing him where the other was, rubbed it down on the water, and then showed me the oil he got off the dipstick. Crooked, isn't it? What's that got to do with anything I'm saying? I don't know. Done forgot my point on this. Maybe I ought to look at my notes. I done forgot it. Anyone know where I was going with that? Crooked people. That's God bless me. That's what I was going to tell the whole story. I'm glad you remember that. So I have been beating myself up. See, I'm not perfect either. But I told my wife, I said, well, here's the deal. I said, if he can live with it, I can live without it. I said, but what he don't know is he did that to a child of God. And actually he did, because I had my shirt on. He seen I was a preacher. He even called me preacher, and God bless you. God bless you. And he told me he had a friend down there. Now listen, they're all the way on the other side of Atlanta, but he's got a friend 20 miles down the road with a trailer he can put it on, because the car can't be drove very long. Engine going to tear up. They drove that car home. So anyhow, I still was kind of rubbed me just a little bit raw, because I knew I'd already lost. Really, I'd put the car up too cheap. Done lost more than that, really, but I just wanted to get that out of it, at least since we bought them other cars. So my tax man called. He said, you remember that we was going to have to deal something with the last year's taxes? And he said, I'm caught up now, and I got it together and ready to send it to you. He said, bad news is, though, Georgia alone's $500 you owe. And I'm thinking, good gracious alive. He said, now, federal, you're looking at $2,100. And he said, but the thing about on the federal, they owe you. So by the time you pay the $500 from state, you're still clearing $1,600. Hello. See how God works? I don't have to worry about my money. Listen, that money can go away today. Matter of fact, they're planning on having some meeting trying to change the currency all over the world. And one day it's going to happen. So you can't trust in that dollar. You've got to trust in God. And so with this, like I said, you got to trust that God's doing what he does, but at the same time, you've got to know that word. You really need to study it so that when people ask you, well, if God loved you so much, why would he let you get ripped off? To show me that he loved me enough to give it back. I didn't have to work for it. Now, I don't know about you, but $1,600, a lot of money in my pocket. A lot of money. And so we're grateful for that. But yeah, we need to prepare. The word prepares us for service. And then also, it sanctifies us. Anyone know what sanctification means? You're going to speak louder. I'm half deaf. Set apart? Yep. Set apart and purified. Anybody else? Purified. Yeah, he sets us apart for his service. And he continually tries to sanctify us, making us more perfect in his image, if we allow him to do that. Over in John chapter 17, verse 17, it says, sanctifying them through thy truth. Thy word is truth. So how do you get sanctified? Through the word. Through the word. There again, you got to know the word in order to understand all that. And like I said, God's not trying to be mean. God's not trying to keep you from having fun. That's why people sometimes they'll say, I don't want to be a Christian because I'm having too much fun. No, you're not. You're having an illusion of fun. It's kind of like when you go over to Disney World and they put them little things in there and your motion is moving in your chair and water spitting in your face and it feels just like you're somewhere. But you're not. And that's the way Satan does it. He gives you an illusion that you're having a great time and all the while he's robbing you blind. But if you ever get to where you totally sell out to God, you're going to find yourself in a happy, happy camping grounds. And it's going to be nice. So he wants us set aside. Why does he want us set aside? Why should we be set aside? You can't. That's a good one. Anybody else? Come on. There's no wrong answers. Well, one of the reasons he wants to set us aside is so that we can be looked at. Now, the important thing about being looked at is you need to be sanctified in being looked at. Allowing that perfection to come in a little bit better so that when somebody looks at you, without you saying a word, just by your actions, they can say, something different about you. Especially when you have a truck that's rolled and they hear about that and you're still smiling and telling jokes. I grant you the average person in the world is not going to do that. It's somebody that knows the Lord, been set aside. And I love it when someone comes up and says, there's something different about you. Are you a preacher? Well, that makes me feel great. Because all it's doing is reflecting on Jesus Christ. It ain't me. It ain't because I'm all that great, but that's because the light's living in me, and I've been close to the light. And matter of fact, it's like that one guy. He said, I want to be like a sponge. And I want to take all of your glory and all of your wonder about you, and I want to soak it in. And then when you put me through the test of life, when you begin to squeeze that sponge that's in my life, then your fragrance will go out, and they can see Jesus all in my life. And that's why sometimes we go through these troubles, because God's wanting his glory and his will and his perfection to shine through our lives. But unfortunately, most of the time we blow it and we lose it and we start fussing about everything. I might have told you one time before, but my dad was associate pastor of this church, and they would always go out to eat. And when they would do that, every time they went out there, the people would fuss about everything. Everything. It would embarrass my daddy to death. Here he is, the associate pastor of a church. It embarrassed him to death. So one day they were sitting out there, and this girl was really messing up everything, messing up the orders, messing up everything, wasn't getting there halfway on time and stuff. And so finally one of the guys fussed at the manager, told the manager to come there. He fussed out the manager. The manager come back a little while later, and he said, I just want to let you know what's going on. He said, I'm not trying to make up excuses, just wanting to let you know what's going on. He said, and it's not an excuse, she shouldn't have done it, but he said that she came to work today, and her mind's been at home. He said the reason being is because she is married to an alcoholic, and he beats her. And said he beat her before he came to work. And he told her that if you don't make enough tips today to satisfy me, when I get home, I'm going to beat you again. And he said so her mind was totally focused on the beating that she's going to get when she gets home, because she's not had much tips today. He said so I sent her home. What do you think happened when she got home? And who was at fault of that? The manager? Her husband? It was church people. Church people. Now I got news for you. If she don't know Jesus, her knowing that we're church folks, and I can tell you from owning a restaurant, we didn't open up on Sundays for a long time. They finally talked me up to opening up in between church hours. And I told our waitresses that we were going to open up Sunday, and every one of them threw a fit. I said, what in the world's wrong? They said they're the most ornery, grumpy people and give the least amount of tips than anybody. We don't want to work on Sunday. We don't want to serve Christians. Sad, sad, sad representation of Christ, isn't it? That's how come, and I'll be honest with you, today, we did not have a good waitress. She hardly ever brought us our drink. The food was terrible. And it just went on and on and on and on. And normally, a long time ago, I'd say, well, I'll give her $1. But I still gave her 10%. Didn't want to, but I thought I don't want to at least give her at least 10%. Because I don't want her walking off and saying, well, they didn't even leave me a halfway decent tip. Well, you had poor service. You shouldn't. No, I'm a child of God. I'm a witness of the King. I'm a child's kid. And the Bible said that I'm heirs and joint heirs with Jesus Christ. What in the world's a few bucks? She can go ahead and have it. And maybe she can have a better day. And maybe she was in the same position this other girl was. I don't know. We don't know other people's life. But it is important that we try to be sanctified, set aside, so that people, when they see us, will understand that we're Christians. And that there's something different about us in our life. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 14 says, as obedient children, not fastening yourselves according to the former lust in your ignorance, but as he which hath called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation. That means no matter what's going on in your life, all manner, every situation you find yourself, we should appear holy to people. Not pharisaical. Y'all know the difference, right? Not in a way to where you're sitting there saying, look at me, look how holy I am. But in your demeanor, in the way that you treat your life. Because it's written, be ye holy, for I am holy. And if you call on the Father, who without respect of persons judgeth according to every man's work, pass the time of your sojourning here in fear. Powerful verse. He's demanding us to be separated. So, let's see. I think I was speaking to go the wrong direction. Oh, let's finish that out. For as much as you know that you were not redeemed, and here's why. Here's why. For as much as you know that you were not redeemed with corruptible things, as silver and gold, from your vain conversations received by traditions from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, as of the Lamb without blemish and without spot. So if there's no other reason that we should try to swallow the bullet, what do you think that verse is really saying? Anybody? To me, what it's saying is look, I've given you more than you deserve. I've given you the best of the best. I bought you with a price. You're not your own. You're mine. And I expect, how many expected your kid, how many heard this statement? Boy, when you go out of that house, y'all ain't heard this one, but similar. When you go out of this house, remember your name's a Bilbrey. And you uphold the name of Bilbrey. Don't do anything that will embarrass the name of Bilbrey. Anyone's parents ever told you that beside Bilbrey? Don't you think God feels the same way? One thing I'm proud of, and I'm not bragging it on our family, I brag it on Jesus Christ, because about everybody in our family's saved. But you go up to Galax, Virginia, and you mention a Bilbrey anywhere, Galax, Virginia, Freeze, or wherever, and ask them, what do you think about a Bilbrey? You know what their answer is going to be? I can promise you. They good folk. If you're ever in a need, they're going to be there. Don't ever hear anything out of it. You don't see them in jail or nothing. They good folks. That's what God wants out of us. They want to be able to go out into a neighborhood that maybe, for instance, David lives in. You know anything about David? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know that he's faithful in his church. I know that he loves God. I can tell by his demeanor, and I'm hoping all this is true. We'll talk later, Brenda. But I'm hoping all this is true. And we never hear them do anything out of the ordinary. They don't drink. They don't do all that stuff. They're good people. And the reason I want that so bad, and that's the reason we want to do that so bad, is because the Bible says that one day we'll stand before him face to face. And we're his children. And we've been upholding the name of God. And I want him to say, well done. You did a good job, boy. Everyone that looked at you understood that you belong to me. Isn't it good to... Now, that being said, like I said, I'm not perfect. So if y'all go out of here, I'm trying to remember whose car's got what. If you get new cars, please let me know. Because I don't want to be honking the horn at one of my church members and shaking my fist and acting a fool and turn around and look, and there you are, you know. Hey, hey, bless you. Just want to let you know your lights are good in the back. This is the honest God's truth. I was going through Austell, Georgia. Going through Austell, Georgia, the guy had on the back of his bumper sticker, honk if you love Jesus. So I laid her down. Went by him and started waving. He shot me a bird just as pretty as you could believe. So I rolled down my window, and he rolled down. He said, boy, he was ready to go at it. I said, I didn't mean no disrespect, but you said honk if you love Jesus. I love him. You should have seen his face. And you know that's bad. But you know what? And we'll close with this. God sees it all. There's not a time that he won't see me honking that horn. He sees it all. And I want him to be proud of his boy. Because I'm proud of his boy. I'm proud of what his boy did. I want to live and act like my big brother Jesus. Because he's always been there when I needed my big brother. And he always will show me how to live life. And I hope we can do that.